Grace. Grace, this amazing, amazing grace. Amazing grace. We perhaps heard about grace all our life. What is this amazing grace? Well, I turn to what Ernest Holmes says first. And Holmes says that grace is the givingness. It is the givingness of spirit to its creation. The givingness of spirit to its creation. That's amazing. And yet, perhaps, I don't know, perhaps the most amazing thing about God's grace is we don't accept it. We don't accept it for what it is. It's readily available all the time. It's available to each of us. No one is left out. It's available to us at no cost and at no obligation. Almost sounds too good to be true, doesn't it? No cost, no obligation. It's yours. And the real truth of it is we do not have to do anything in order to receive it. So it's like, I don't know about you, but from where I grew up and the traditions I grew in and into, it's similar to like, I felt like God is way out there. Like way, way out there. Somewhere. Way out there, right? And every now and then, God would like show up from time to time. Almost like we're children standing next to the fireplace waiting for Santa Claus to come. Well, I know I've been good. I hope I was good enough to deserve God's presence, to get the presents, right? Am I worthy enough? Did I make the list? Because He's going to check it twice. And it's like wondering, have you ever wondered if you're good enough? Good enough for God's grace? To be graced with God's presence? So I think, I could be wrong, but I think that's where we just got it all wrong. We just got it all wrong, if any of that sounds familiar. And so this morning, it's like taking this word that we've heard and what is it, and breaking it down to see, is there a new understanding, a new way of being with this thing called grace? And so from a science of mind perspective again, and some assistance from the Sacred Yes, we're going to do this. And so remember, Ernest Holmes tells us that grace is the givingness of spirit to its creation. He says that God in nature, the universe, whatever one chooses to call it, withholds nothing from anyone. Nothing from anyone. It is all delivered. This is what he interprets as the Christian theology of grace. Grace, because the universe is itself an infinite givingness. An infinite givingness. He says it can't help it. It can't help it. That's its nature. So the one key question I'd love for you to ponder as we move through this together on this journey of grace in this moment and later is, do I find it difficult to accept? Do I find it challenging Do I find it, I don't know, restrictive to accept the ever availability of God's grace? Just be with that question, because you're the only one that can answer that. So Reverend Deborah Johnson talks about this a lot in the book. And there's a definition of grace. Go look it up. The first thing you're going to see is the free and unmerited favor of God. The unmerited favor of God. Unmerited favor. That means, you didn't have to do anything to deserve it. But, for me, growing up, this unmerited favor of God, I sort of felt like, well, I didn't do anything to deserve this, or I have to do something to deserve this, or whatever, but it's unmerited. Because the truth is, it can't be earned. So did you ever go like, I didn't deserve this. I didn't deserve this raise. I didn't deserve, this person in my life. I didn't deserve, Well, it's unmerited. You don't have to. You don't have to deserve it. Because God's grace is not something, and it's not based upon anything that you can do. Nothing that you can do. You can't earn it. It's there for you just because. Just because it's there. It's there. So we have a difficulty, I think, understanding this in our society, because aren't we sort of a goal-oriented society? Aren't we sort of a success-driven society? Aren't we like all about what I can do? I gotta do it, right? It must, if it's meant to be, it's up to me, right? And it's so individualistically minded that the only good we could ever have is based upon the good I do. Well, Reverend Deborah brings us beautiful insights in the chapter, My Grace is Sufficient. Now remember, if you're not reading along, this is actually a conversation that Spirit, God, is having with you. So just imagine the voice of God. It is difficult for you, especially in your American society, to accept my grace. You are always looking to the fruits of your own labor as the source of your good. You find it difficult to accept anything that you feel you do not deserve. And you do not feel like you deserve anything if you have not worked hard for it. You work hard for your money. So hard, right? No pain, no gain. Still, it is most challenging for you to simply accept the good when it comes around. What if it does this? Oh. My goodness. My grace is not a reward for anything that you have done. My grace is not removed from anything that you have not done. My grace is forever, for my grace is sufficient. That's from 2 Corinthians. My grace is sufficient for you. For you, 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 for you. So, we know what Ernest Holmes tells us. Grace is that which is not earned but given. So he is on the exact same page. And he defines grace in the Science of Mind textbook, which is our source book. He defines grace as, grace is a givingness of spirit to its creation and is not a special law, but a specialized one. Sufficient to you. It's specialized. In other words, grace is, but we need to recognize it. It is not something God imposes upon us, but it is the logical result of the correct acceptance of life and of a correct relationship to the Spirit. We are saved by grace to the extent that we believe in, accept, and seek to embody the law of good. That was like the key tenet of Jesus' teaching, to bring the law of good to our awareness. And it's a specialized law. It's specialized just for Lainey. Only as Lainey wants to meet that law. Or Bill. Or Matt. It's not one melting pot. It's specialized. So we've been talking this month, Reverend Deborah started us off with the spiritual concepts, the spiritual qualities are actually a verb. Remember that? She said faith is a verb. Last week, courage is a verb. Well, grace is a verb too. It takes action. Grace is a verb. There is something that we, as an individualized expression, have to bring to the table. We have to act. There's an action of us. But the key thing is, because he tells us we have to believe in, accept it, and seek to embody that which is already there for our own use. So it's already there. It's always there. It's already there. We don't have to do anything to get it. But we have to come to the table. That's where the verb. And when we do, when we show up and meet something that's already there, it's like we show up, we awaken. When we meet something, it's like this combustible energy that happens. I feel and believe. It's this combustible energy that actually allows us then to experience the spiritual quality, in this case known as grace. Reverend Deborah tells us that grace is the place where your spoken and unspoken needs delight in my, capital M, my intentional provision. Meaning God, Spirit, universe, whatever you choose to call it. Spoken and unspoken needs. Because there are things that we need that we don't even know we need. Does that ever happen? There are things I need that I don't even know I need. Or perhaps, there are things that I need that I might be afraid to say I need. Let's just look at the things, let's just look at one thing. Something that's always there. The mystery of our body temple. If we look at that, and there, right now, before I even say it, before I even tell you it's happening, right now, millions upon millions of processes are going on in your body right now. Say hi to them. Think about it. Millions of processes. They're going on simultaneously. It's not one thing, then the other, but simultaneity, right here. Millions of processes are going on right now. And we don't even know because they've already been programmed. They're already in place. They're already existing. And it's filled with an intelligence and a wisdom. And it knows exactly what it's supposed to do. And we don't have to do it. Thank goodness. Could you imagine yourself having to literally beat your own heart? At the same time, literally take a breath. At the same time, lift your right leg. At the same time, pat your head. At the same time, let your kidneys filter. At the same time, the blood has to... think about it. We'd be on the floor in 2 seconds if we had to do that. So we can let go of the weight on our shoulders because actually we live in a universe that without our interference, everything is sustainable. It's already sustainable. without our interference. We don't have to make it sustainable, but here's the thing. We got to get ourselves out of the way so we don't make it unsustainable. And perhaps that's what we've sort of been doing. It's not up to us to make the environment anything sustainable, because it already is. The problem is we've gotten in the way, haven't we? Whether you agree with that statement or not. But our body is already sustainable unless we get in the way and take it off course. I have taken it off course for the past 3 years. I got in the way. It's always been sustainable, but I got in the way. And I'm bringing it back on track. Some of y'all are seeing my posts, working out 3, 4, 5 times a week. My pants are starting to fall off. That's good. I'm in the between stage, right? So sometimes things are so deep within us, there's this sacred yes. It's just like this sacred yes that we may not even want to speak, that we can't even articulate it. And sometimes, again, it's so deep and big, we're afraid to articulate it. So it's our spoken and unspoken. I heard all the time in ministerial school, if your ministry doesn't scare the bejeejees out of you, you ain't got a big enough vision. So there's that sacred yes, right? But it's this place where our grace is this place where our spoken and unspoken needs delights. Delights. So what if your needs weren't in worry? You ever worried about your needs? Anybody? Yeah, okay. And what if we understood there was an intentional provision? And we let go of the idea that we have to make things happen, but instead we're participating in this bounty, this table that's already here before we got here, and it's alive right now. It's been alive all along. We can look at things as, let's look at our breath. Get ready, I'm going to tell you to in a second. But the air is here. It's been here all along. Now take a breath. It was there all along. And all we had to do was meet it and breathe, right? It's been here all along. Our food has been here long before we're born. How to grow food. Our music. The music was present before Alana sang that song. Wasn't it? It was already here. So we are a part of this unbroken chain of life called humanity that's since the beginning of time. So the great news is we're not going in alone, even at times where we perhaps feel like we are. We're not. The mind that we use is the one mind. That which we create, we are doing it with the creative force, right? It's not dependent solely on any of us. It's there, and it's always there. The only question is whether we want to participate or not. But everything is already provided. It's already there. If one door is closed on something, there's just all these other doors that we get to walk into. If we didn't get a particular job, there are all these other jobs that are already there. They're already existing. It's not that all of a sudden you have to make a company and be the CEO of the company and build up that company enough so there's an opening in the company so you can have the job. It's already there. Okay, you don't have to raise your hand, but inside of you, or you can say out loud if you want, who wants like that partnership, that love partnership? Oh, okay. We're going to find the single people in the community right now. Get them together. I want you to hear this. That partner is already there. That partner, he or she, doesn't have to be born. If so, you better get busy and feed it some antibiotics. And it's already there. It's already there. We sang this song together. So brilliant. Look at the one mind. It wasn't chosen because it knew precisely what I was going to talk about. It was chosen over a month ago. But this, I need you. There's a challenge sometimes, like need. I don't need to need anything. Oh. It's like this need. I need you. Well, if our sense of need, if we could conceive of, let alone delight in, that there's a provision, and not just any old provision, that there's an intentional provision already present, that there is like awe in the intelligence of the universe, this intentional provision in this perfect world, this perfect universe, that this energetic vibration is already happening, perhaps we wouldn't look at need from that perspective, because where we would start to look at the perspective is the good you seek is seeking you. The job you're seeking is going, I want you. That partner that you're wanting is going, I want you. And if they're not, you don't want them. But the good we are seeking is already seeking us. It's already present. It's already here. Some of us, I know not you. I know not you. I'm not speaking to you. I'm speaking to the person next to you. Some of us can be challenged to say, I need help. I need help. I need help. I need help. Sometimes some of us wait till it's so far down the road, it's so panic-stricken, like, I need help, help. If we don't share what's going on in our life, if we don't say, I need something. For example, just an example, one of limitless examples, I need help with childcare. That which you are seeking is seeking you. You are leaving the opportunity on the table when you say, I need childcare, for someone who needs your child's laughter. To get matched up. Wow. That's like God's grace, right? For someone to play with your child, it's a mutual blessing. So we don't have to walk around with any kind of shame or anything that we need help. We got a whole community of people here. That's one of the wonderful things about being in community. There's already a perfect match. There's already a perfect match. What if we started out with the belief that our needs were already met? My need is already met. My perfect partner is already here. That, I need you. I need you in my life. What if we started off with that assumption? That my needs are already met. Since I've shared this in certain ways, but I cannot begin to express, since I gave a sacred yes and finally met and had a verb of, and came to the table on that sacred yes and didn't back off of it to be a minister. My previous career for 23 years of sales and marketing was awesome to me. It was great. There were times I made hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars in a calendar year. So financially, all my needs were met. By any means, most people, except for living in the Bay Area, quite expensive. God, if I'd just done that here in Dallas. Anyway, but you know, if someone just looked at that, they'd go, wow. But now, by the grace, I am living such an abundant life. It just keeps happening. I feel so much more abundant in all areas of my life, including financial. But if you looked at my W-2 these years to these years, you'd be going, she is crazy. But it happens. I'm at Cooper Fitness because they have a program for ministers. Is that not grace? My need to be at one of the best fitness facilities so I'd stay motivated was met because I said, well, I got to see if it's in my pay grade. You see, I'm a minister. And God said, hang on a second. Just take that in. That's for every one of us. That's an amazing grace right there. So if we start with the notion that all our needs are met, oh my gosh, what we can be individually and collectively as a community. So I want to share an example. I love, and Dr. Petra loves, when you all have prayer requests to the practitioners and to us, and sometimes you'll say, please share this prayer request with the ministers, and they do. And then you actually circle back and say, TSRW. If you don't know, because you're new to our community, TSRW stands for this shit really works. Or stuff, Richard. And sometimes you share with us just how great and grace-filled it's working. So I want to share an example of someone in our community, and what I love is all the examples I get to hear along the way. I mean, I'm looking at some of you, I know. I'm only going to share one of the examples. But this person stopped me last Sunday and said, I got to share something with you. And I'm like, oh, okay. And it happens to be someone that's in service every single Sunday to our community. Behind the scenes, if you don't know. He always sits on the back. He's still sitting there. And every Sunday, he is the lead for this whole Sunday production. Armando can too. And I remember when he came here a few years ago, and I know what community he came from, much larger community, and he was in service to that community as well. But he took up these teachings. He took up these principles. He took this up. He met them at the table. And he has a sacred yes that he's been holding and like not letting go for a while. And he's been graced every step of the way. He's had health challenges that nobody knows about. He's had his family, his parents have had health challenges that no one knows about. In fact, he was in the hospital with his dad yesterday. And he's here today. But he's had this grace. And he shared with me, he said, Karen, I got to tell you, I've held this project, and it's launching this week. This was last Sunday. And it took me a while, Armando, to get what the name was. But once I was with him, I'm like, this is a brilliant name. It's called the CARD, C-A-R-D, the Card Board Project. Don't y'all love that? The Card Board Project. Okay, well, anyway. It's called Courage, Acceptance, responsibility, and dignity. Card. Courage. I spoke about it last week. He was posting his lions last week like you would not believe. Courage, acceptance, responsibility, and dignity. And he launched his first community outreach program. He partnered with Cornerstone Baptist Church in South Dallas. Now, he didn't know this community. He didn't even know the pastor. And he was sort of going to, some people would have just gone and got on the phone and, can I get to the. Guess what? He showed up. And when he was walking in the door at Cornerstone Baptist, the pastor was walking out. And he said, "Hi, Pastor. My name's Armando. I have this project that I just feel strongly about, and I want to do it in your community. And so I was going to get a meeting with you scheduled." He said, "Well, come on back right now." They had one conversation. That pastor said, "Well, let's start this week." Armando went, "Great. What do I need?" 3 laptops and volunteers. You know what they're doing? I love this. They set up a digital mobile camp at their place called The Kitchen, and it provided a safe space with Wi-Fi to assist guests in applying for online jobs for the soon upcoming Texas State Fair. So here are people, remember the jobs are already there. We're just going to match. That's what he's doing. He's matching. He's that sacred yes to assist in the match. They were lined up down the street. There were so many. And they ended up taking 13 online applications submitted. Of the 20 intakes, just in this first day, 7 live on the street, 9 in shelters, 3 in a house or apartment, 1 in a car. 1's a veteran, 1 is disabled. He's that sacred yes conduit, right? But on Tuesday, now mind you, this was taking place on Thursday. On Tuesday, he had 0 laptops and 0 volunteers. And he just held that yes. It's always there. On Wednesday, he had 3 laptops and 3 volunteers in order to launch this. Yes. And if any of you are inspired and want to assist, I'm sure there'll be plenty, he's shaking his head, there'll be plenty of opportunity to volunteer. Our community could be with the Cornerstone Baptist community. I'm like so inspired. He so inspires me. I'm like, I got to be a part of this. I want to play at this table. It's like amazing, and many of us are doing that. But the whole thing is all his needs were met. We've heard this perhaps all our life. Give us this day our daily bread. Give us this day our daily bread. And we tend to interpret it as a ration. But that's not what it means. Daily bread is this constructed word. It's not the original language it was spoken in. Jesus had a way of putting concepts together, lots of them, and he would bring them together. And it would mean something entirely different than how we've decided to take it up. And the linguistic definition of daily bread is sustenance that meets your need from day to day. From day to day to day. Not just today, from day to day to day. So whatever it is you need, it's specialized, whatever you need. Holmes tells us that grace is the giving us of spirit to its creation. It is not a special law, but a specialized one. In other words, grace is, but we need to recognize it. We are saved by grace to the extent, save a soul like me. We are saved by grace to the extent that we believe in, accept it, and seek to embody the law of good. So I ask you to ponder a question. Do I find it difficult? Do I find it difficult to accept the ever availability of God's grace? God's grace is sufficient. It is sufficient. God's grace is sufficient simply because you are. You are. You are. It's amazing grace. It is amazing grace. I want to end on this from the Sacred Yes. And I just invite you to take this in. I'll put it in the I. When I am able to accept grace as simply a state of being, not an action that I take to bestow something, not an action that God takes to bestow something on me in times of need. It's not a perk for having reached a certain spiritual plateau. It's not the byproduct of my own spiritual disciplinary work. When I can accept that God's grace is sufficient simply because I am, then my true freedom and ability to access the grace that is already mine will come more easily, more effortlessly. It is amazing grace. Amazing grace. And may today and what we ponder open us up from this point forth to live in the amazement that grace is never ceasing. It is always available. It is accessible to each of us. That this divine givingness of spirit is available to each of us as we accept and claim and know our good. So it is.